There's the SEC meaning secure and govern and growth senior leaders staff meeting, which we've changed this around where we had another set of discussions with both senior managers and myself and managers on many subjects, but we optimized things a bit, where now it is primarily the senior managers and myself discussing things, but everyone else also invited for the public topics, which is great. But now, Thomas, I think you and Phil are doing similar discussions, both sync and or async with your team. So that made it a bit more efficient. Sound about right?
Yep.
Cool. And of course, this is also open to everybody at GitLab to join as well. But mostly things that Phil and Thomas and I want to discuss with everybody else's input also taken into account, of course, too. So I don't see Phil here just yet. I know he's coming. We just talked, but we can get started without him. Number one's a read-only item. Thomas, why don't you go into number two?
Okay, so two things, FedRAMP. So coming out of the FedRAMP working group last week, there's a notion of how significant changes are that can become a trigger for audits. And so this is guidance for what is considered to be a significant change has been added to the handbook. I've linked to into the internal handbook. I've linked to the merge request that made the change itself. I've talked about this in a couple of meetings since this occurred, and there's a number of questions that have come up that were not asked last week. And so I am trying to collect those. If you have any questions, please send them my way. The next working group meeting is less than 24 hours from now. And so, so any questions on this item?
Aside of engineering managers being aware of what constitutes a review or a request, is there any other like automated checking that we're doing in certain areas, like a linter, something like that?
Not that I'm aware of. This is an emerging topic. I do expect that this would have an impact on planning conversations, particularly milestone planning conversations. So that's why I wanted to bring it up here. Great question. Thank you.
Some of these seem like work that we do fairly regularly, like auth mechanisms or changes to those, addition removal of services. Is there an opportunity, I guess, to manage FedRAMP only instances somehow? I know right now it's self-managed. Eventually it may be SaaS, but I guess, can we segregate these to a separate type of GitLab version so we don't need to do this every time we make a change?
It's not self-managed. That's going to be dedicated. It's going to be FedRAMP. It's dedicated is the delivery mechanism for it. And so there are some conversations about what the update cadence to dedicated will be. And that might be the way in which this is mitigated or controlled. All of this is kind of, from my point of view, this is an emerging topic. First time I heard about it was last week. That's why I'm collecting questions and want to make sure that we at least get the conversation started over here. Great question.
And if we're confused, if a type of change requires an additional audit, who should we be pinging to bring in? Is there a certain group? Is there a FedRAMP group that we tag, or maybe some?
There's a working group. However, the working group is being driven mostly out of product management. So I suggest this being a conversation with PM. Let's go through that channel as a first start.
And then at what point, like there's like multiple changes that are happening with the Ansible group and probably with the auth group that are probably affected by this and warrant like at least consideration. So like up to what point are we assuming that like we're good from a certain point in the code base, and then going forward we need clarification?
I'm not gonna, if I answer that question, I'll be telling you more than I know. So let me go ask the question and get it from the authoritative source.
Okay. Thank you. I'll tag you and stuff. I don't know what to do
No,
next.
no, I don't want to be tagged.
Okay.
I get tagged enough. Let me get, what's the, as far as like, if there's questions or escalation paths, what is it? Like, how do teams get clarification on this? I'll bring this to the working group. I will let the working group declare what the process is, and then we'll make sure that we're talking about it here and then in staff meetings.
Sure. Sure. Tag me, probably tag Adil, as it's like hyper relevant for us.
Mhm. Roger that.
Yeah, in my ideal world, there's some sort of definition around, entities or objects where, hey, if you modified, for example, the same way we do for database, which is, hey, if you touch a finder, you got to do certain additional things. Similarly, if we can define those files or objects in code, we can probably automate some of this. But it's probably, I'm learning about it now as well. So
And let me make this a request. If you have questions beyond this, send them my way. I go to the working group meeting weekly, and I will make sure that we get this discussed and get answers to these questions.
Good stuff. Why don't we move on to number 3?
All right, number 3 is an FYI. This is more of a secure. This is something that affects secure more than govern, and I think other groups here or other stages. But there are changes to FIPS containers that are coming. One is, and you'll see 2 items there. Note the or rather than the and. We're most likely going to be doing one of these rather than both. It was initially thought that this was going to hit imminently. Now it's going to slip out of the next quarter and probably start after 17.0, which will have the added benefit of us should be able to take advantage of any work that distribution does. Like, we could absorb that rather than have to go from first principles. So this is more of an FYI than anything else. So. That, most people have questions on it. I'll cede the floor.
Great. So number 4. So what's the latest on completing the restructuring updates? It's important to have that single source of truth and have the single source of truth actually be the truth. Lots to get there on handbook updates, issue and MR labels, workday updates, team member transitions to new teams, etc. So what's the latest on this?
We're very close. So I think we're mostly complete across govern and growth. I've linked the issue there. I think we'll have that closed by the end of the week. There may be 1 or 2 follow-up tasks that will spin off into separate issues, but that's sort of business as usual. We did notice a few team member changes that we've had to go back and clarify with People Connect. I followed up on that. I'll just be reviewing later today, but I don't think there's any blockers there.
Same and secure workday updates we're going through today within secure itself. So that's triggering some handbook updates as a result. So I'm seeing everything flowing through, not blocked. Should be done this week.
That's updating everything. What about people actually transitioning to their new teams when they're changing teams?
The feedback I've been having, and there's a few engineering managers on the call here who can speak to that, is that the team members have been speaking with their teams, those who are changing teams, have already had one-on-ones and catch-ups with their colleagues and their manager, and in most cases already have assigned work or upskilling in the areas that they're moving into.
Yeah, we're off the Z is rolling. We're live. We're going.
Great. Same in secure, Thomas?
It's yes, with the caveat that with the individual moving over to static analysis, it was planned and was agreed upon between the EMs that person would finish up their current assignments, which is going to take a couple of more weeks, and then would transition over. So it is progressing according to the plan that the 2 managers had discussed. But workday and organizational changes have happened. The assignments are following a natural progression that both EMs are comfortable with.
Great. Glad to see this is going so well. So let's discuss in number 5, the latest iteration on the plan for the SEC growth development team day. Any feedback before I continue coordinating and iterating on it?
Yeah, so I just had one item to discuss here. I know you've got in there plans, I think at the moment on the 15th for Thomas to lead a session with the PM Vision by Stage. We actually do a quarterly recording of our stage strategy, and then we have a Q&A that's live. And that's actually scheduled for that Q&A to happen on November 8th, which is just 1 week before. So it seems a little bit duplicative if we've recorded it and then we've had a Q&A and then we go do it all again. I suppose we could like delay it a week so that it happens on the 15th if you would
Yeah.
prefer.
No need, Sam. Great serendipitous timing. Just so let's not do it twice. Let's do it once and just invite the developers in Secure and Govern and the stable counterparts. UX, Set, and Infra, and any others. And then we can still do one, since I don't know, Sam, if you're doing one on the PM direction for growth anytime around that time. If so, we don't need to duplicate yours either. If not, we'd love to have you and your PMs as guests to give us an overview.
Yeah, I just added a comment. So we actually did our quarterly team sync today and reviewed our areas of priority and the vision for growth going into Q4. Went very well, just yet to be uploaded. So happy to repeat those priorities and vision if it's seen as valuable.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of repeating things. Maybe we point people at the recordings that, Sam's teams are doing and Sarah is doing, and then maybe have a session to say, invite the development teams and the stable counterparts to those, or just have a Q&A for the development team week. If you don't want to invite all the it's inviting a lot of people to invite all the developers. There are email aliases that allow you to invite whole groups pretty easily. So whatever you think is best, either invite the development teams and the counterparts to the ones already scheduled, or just reference them in the team day. And then maybe we have a sync session to say, watch this recording. It may have been done a month ago. That's fine. Or a week ago, and bring any questions, and then have the PMs host to answer the questions. Whatever Sam and Sarah prefer, I'm fine with on that.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I'm mostly fine either way. Just seems like ideally we would have one Q&A session instead of 2. Unless we like want to split it out for like the sales team versus the developers for some reason. But did you want me to actually invite the developers like through an alias, or right now they're just on the calendars? I think we've actually done this quarterly review for a few years now, but it's just on the Secure and Govern Stage calendars so that people can self-add to it if they're interested. But if there's an alias and you want me to explicitly add everybody, I'm fine to do that as well.
Yeah, I think
There are both. There are aliases. I think we can just promote this. Wayne, Thomas, and I can promote this amongst our teams. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
that's good. Thank you. Good optimization, so we're not doing repetitive work for no good reason. But we're still getting the information out, being really transparent about it too, and asking for feedback and doing great collaboration. So yay. So that's the PM portion. Jay and Adil and Phil and Thomas, did you get a chance to look at the overall plans? Does it seem reasonable? Do I get the thumbs up to continue doing this? Is it going in the right direction?
Are you
Yes.
referring to November 14th of doing a presentation?
That and the rest, like team building exercises and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks. On number 6, so what's the Secure and Govern, and I should say, and growth, MR rate for the stages? What's it been over the last, maybe 6 months? And how is that compared with the overall company goal? I'd like to start thinking on this in my year-end reflection. I checked the Sisense dashboards. They didn't look accurate when I last looked.
So there are some noted issues with Sisense at the moment. I believe it has something to do with safe data. So some of the data comes out of our HR tables, and I think some of the group labeling isn't working as a result of that. It looks like there has been a recent change to that. So we are now getting data, whereas you couldn't filter down by group or section or stage. But I need to follow up, and I don't like using Sisense for this because we have so many issues with reliability of data, and we can't drill down any lower than group level to verify that the numbers are correct. I think it's just an action item for myself and my engineering managers to go in and look at over the next week. Did you have a date where you wanted this up-to-date information ready, Wayne?
That's a good question. Wasn't thinking a specific time frame. So in the next couple of weeks, if that's reasonable. Is that reasonable?
And should we circle back in this meeting, or do you want to do that async?
Let's try async first, and then only discuss sync if we need to. How's that sound to you, Thomas?
That works for me. I saw this ask. It was meaning to get to it beforehand, and I was falling down on the job. So time is appreciated. I will say that the MR rate in Secure has been falling over the past 6 months, and it's mostly been due to a rather significant change in where work is being delivered. This is the primary driver of this.
Is that scanners versus the monolith, I would assume?
Mm-hmm. And that's not picking on cycle times. It's more a realization of how much more heavyweight the review processes are within the Rails platform versus the analyzers themselves. More eyes takes more time.
Good to know. Last item I had for the public meeting. So OKR guidance. So please do update the % complete and the health status. That's a separate field in the objectives and key results. On all Q3 OKRs that haven't been updated in the last 2 weeks. I went through the ones that are mine and that mine roll up to and commented on a number yesterday. Also, please make sure all Q4 OKRs, which are draft right now, are based on results and measurable. Things like do X things out of Y things in Z time, whatever that, whatever. We don't want to have, we would like to avoid having binary goals, or especially things that are not measurable. So I did some updates and added some questions and thoughts. So if you could take a look, that would be great. Go ahead, Adil.
The product roadmap ones probably rely on some input, at least in case of Govern Auth, on the product strategy conversation that I think Sam and PMs are having now, November 8th. So I expect they may get tweaked. I imagine that's acceptable for now.
Yeah, we don't want to do this before. They're like, don't put things in there before we know what they are. As I know products working on what the top priorities are for Q4, or the continue to iterate on what the priorities are for the development teams. And when that, add it. Hopefully it's sooner rather than later. Like, doesn't need to be before the first day of the quarter, but within the first week of the quarter would be great. So the teams are making sure they're focusing on the right things. I'd say if it's more than 2 weeks after the beginning of the quarter, then that's a concern, because then that gives us, a good portion of the quarter's already over when we want to focus on the right things. So, but it definitely is not a rush to do this. I think in the next 2 weeks would be great. 3 weeks gives me a little bit of concern. Does it sound reasonable, Adil?
Yep.
Knowing also, we can iteratively change these things. We may say it's priority X, and then as we learn more, the priorities might change, right? And if so, just update things, and we'll plan accordingly. We're not trying to lock these in stone either.
Yeah, and I'll just add, like, this quarterly strategy session, for those of you who aren't as familiar with it, I'm not expecting, like, this isn't something that comes out and suddenly changes everything. the strategy is going to be the same strategy that your PMs have already been working with you on. And like, it's going to be the same roadmap items. It's just, this is an opportunity for us to share that out more broadly. So this isn't something that should come as a surprise. There shouldn't really be anything new in that strategy session as it relates to your individual groups. You might learn new things about other groups because you just weren't aware before, but like, this isn't like a surprise. This isn't something that we're unveiling really new information. It's just a matter of making information that's already had available.
Makes sense.
And we have, now 3 newer teams in Govern, so anti-abuse and the 2 auth teams. Would be great to see a longer term strategy for those 3 teams. I'm hoping this strategy session on November the 8th will highlight that, whether through you have an internal spreadsheet, we can add the teams to that, and then that information will flow into the strategy session. It's those teams in particular that will be most keenly looking to see what's coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with the new authorization group. I don't know how much we're going to have a long-term roadmap ready for the strategy review. Especially where Hannah's just covering, and we have Joe starting on December 1st, but we'll do what we can, and what we miss on, we'll catch up on the next quarter.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Phil and Thomas, if you could stick around and everybody else could drop, we'll stop the recording and talk about some of our confidential items. That's if I can figure out how to tell